There is an inherent challenge to democracy, a challenge that calls us to hope in moments of despair, a challenge that asks us to persist in the faith that what pulls us together is stronger than what drives us apart. We light our chalice as a reminder to discover and grow that faith together.
I invite you to sing this song by Melanie DeMore. It's called Lead with Love, and she wrote it the day after the election, 2016. You gotta put one foot in front of the other. Lead with love, hold one foot in front of the other. Lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other. Lead with love, hold one foot in front of the other. Lead with love. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot in front of the other. Lead with love. Hold one foot in front of the other. Lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other. Lead with love. Hold one foot in front of the other. Lift up your eyes. Don't you despair. Look up ahead. The path is there. Put one foot in front of the other. Lead with love. Hold one foot in front of the other. You gotta put one foot in front of the other. But here I am, right next to you. You gotta put one. Please be seated.
Good morning, All Souls. That was like okay. I think we can probably do better. Good morning, All Souls. Much better. All right. My name's Garrett Suarez. My pronouns are he and him. I'm really excited to serve as your worship associate for today. If you're visiting us for the first time, or even if you just feel new here, please raise your hand so that we can give you an All Souls welcome. Our weekly email bulletin is a great way to find out the latest news. Sign up through the link on the All Souls homepage. Today, we honor the great legacy of both indigenous and enslaved peoples at this international crossroads now called Washington, D.C. For generations, Piscataway tribes have been the traditional caretakers of our bioregion. These people of the waters lived along the Anacostia and Potomac rivers. Our church has occupied 3 sites on stolen Native American lands within unjust systems that continued to benefit from Black and immigrant labor. The heritage of all these ancestors is still here in this region and in our congregation. Our land acknowledgement sets an intention to educate ourselves and acknowledge that something should be done to repair harm. But our commitments to the beloved community and to the 8th principle also calls us to the doing. We are working with All Souls Social Justice Ministries to make our ideological solidarity concrete. It's often at this time in the service that we greet one another, but I'm going to ask today that we hold off. It will be a little different. We'll be inviting you to greet one another and on Zoom at the end of the service. Welcome again.
Good morning, All Souls. I'm Reverend Anastasia, your developmental minister, and I'm going to ask some of our younger friends to come forward for our time for all ages. Yeah. Welcome, welcome. You're always welcome to come up anytime during the message. So today at church, we're talking about democracy. Now, I don't know if you've noticed that in this church as Unitarian Universalists, we talk about democracy a lot. Does that sound true to you? Yeah. Did you know that Unitarians and Universalists have been practicing democracy in our churches for hundreds of years before the United States was created? And did you know historians sometimes think people got the whole idea for a democracy by looking at how churches like ours were practicing democracy? So no wonder we talk about it a lot. But that's not something that was just practiced hundreds of years ago. We're still practicing it today. And do you know, we actually can practice democracy, and you'll hear this in what I'm going to share with you. Do you know we practice democracy a little bit every day in our congregation? But there's a story from a UU young adult now, not that much older than you, named Shayla French. And Shayla, who goes by Z and pronouns, went to Star Island. Have any of you heard of Star Island? It's a pretty good name for a special island, right? It is beautiful. It's out in the Atlantic Ocean, and it's rocky, but with some grass and these wonderful buildings. It looks a little bit like France, but you could get there like just by a ferry and a car. And on this island, every summer, there are these UU camps. For the last 2 summers, I was minister for a week on Star Island, which was so wonderful, and my family came to love it. And one of the things that they do on Star Island is that there are all these youth groups there. Youth come and spend a whole week, and they organize themselves. And at the end of the week, they hold an election. They vote, the youth, on which youth leaders will lead their conference or camp the next year. And Shayla was reflecting on the last conference that Air was at and remembering what happened. The people who were interested in leadership came forward and shared why they wanted to serve as leaders and what they appreciated about the conference and what their hopes were and what they would seek to do. And everyone listened, and then the people who were hoping to get elected, they left the room so everyone else can talk about things. And the other youth shared, here's my experiences with a certain youth leader, or here's something really kind that they did, or I was really excited about this idea, or, I know this youth pretty well, and they're a wonderful person, but they're challenged to balance their priorities or complete things sometimes, and so we should know that too. And then they voted anonymously. And one of the things Shayla reflected was she had never been part of a moment of democracy or an election run by adults that was carried out so lovingly. And Shayla knew why that had been. Because they took time to get to know each other all week. They hung out and ate lunch. They went and played together. They went on hikes together. They built crafts together. They ate, they have these amazing drinks that they always have at Star Island and ice cream. In fact, they knew each other. And so when they spoke about each other, they were kind. And when they made decisions, they didn't just say, what do I want at Star Island, or who's my friend, which is often how people vote. They said, what is best for Star Island? What is best for our community? And Shayla knew that it is very hard to have conversations like that with 330 million people, which is about the number of people who should vote in the next election. Because it's hard to really find the time to have that many conversations, even in a group. And it's really impossible to get to know that many people well. But they also reflected that in our congregations, or in our schools, or in our camps, and certainly in our families, we could take the time to know each other and think about what is best for all, and practice democracy in those small ways. So every time you seek to get to know someone, maybe the person sitting right next to you, and what they need, and share what you need, our democracy gets a little stronger. And so that is how we build a strong democracy, not just for us here, and we do need one, and not just for our city, the nation's capital, but hopefully for all the people in our country. So let's remember to take time to get to know one another and recognize kind of the good values and care we could bring anytime we vote. So I invite us to think about that as you follow Ms. Laura off to your activities or go join your families back in the pews. Let us sing Sia Hamba together.
Good morning from the pulpit. Good morning, I'm Keith Arnold, pronouns he and him, filling in for Reverend Rob as liturgist, who is unfortunately home sick. We're sending you good vibes, Rob, for quick healing, yes. So our announcements today, after a strong start with us for preaching 3 Sundays in July, Reverend Anastasia heads out this coming week for several weeks of a long-planned vacation. We wish her and her family safe and meaningful travels. and look forward to reconnecting in mid-August. Speaking of connecting in August, this developmental ministry is not about a single minister. Rather, it's about our entire congregation. As such, we hope you will join us as we launch our collective developmental ministry together, starting Sunday, August 25th, and continuing all that week. There are numerous events focused on connection and learning that week for our launch week. Check the church calendar and upcoming newsletters for more. Some more announcements today. We celebrate. Oh my God. Oh, I am so sorry. This is so embarrassing. But I think I really better get this one. Oh, so sorry. Can't believe my phone is on. God. Hello?
Oh, good morning. Good morning. My name is Anne, and I'm a volunteer with the Read Voting Rights Project. I'm trying to reach the All Souls congregation.
This is the All Souls congregation, in fact, the pulpit. You've reached the pulpit.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, but it's very important. So I'll just make it quick, okay? So we need everyone in the congregation to help us call voters this summer and fall.
Okay, I'll let the congregation know. I'm sure you'll get lots of volunteers, given how impressive the response has been to sending out postcards to get out the vote.
Oh, it's so true. All Souls has rocked the postcard campaigns, and I really hate to ask for more, but I'm going to, because I have to. We have to respond to this madness with the force of our convictions and investment of our time. Research has demonstrated that talking to voters, making that human connection, is the most powerful way to get them to vote.
Really, I didn't know that calling voters was one of the most effective approaches. That's amazing. Seems like calling strangers is awkward and might actually annoy them.
Yeah, okay, maybe. That might be true. Hey, don't you think living in a country where hatred and anger are glorified it's like way worse than being annoyed? What do you think?
Got it, yes. We definitely... I do think we need more volunteers to call voters. I will let All Souls know. Thanks for the call.
One last thing, sorry. So I need to let them know that there are virtual phone banks every Tuesday night to Black voters in North Carolina, encouraging them to vote and providing resources to make sure that it's easy to check where they are registered. Now, training and support are provided to new callers, so it's easy to come if you're a new caller. And people should also know that it's not as intimidating as it seems. In fact, people often discount how uplifting it really feels to empower someone to vote. So can you make sure to tell All Souls that?
I sure will. Did you get that, All Souls? Okay.
Yay! See you at the next phone bank.
Thanks for calling. Good information to have. Good information, especially given that we are in the John Lewis Week of Good Trouble 2024. Good trouble. It's a week of actions for democracy in honor of the late Representative John Lewis, who famously said, "Never, ever be afraid to make some noise to get into good trouble, necessary trouble." Phone banks every Tuesday night. Thank you for that. Let's give it a hand to Anne and our amazing Read leaders. Moving into announcements about congregational care and those we're lifting up this week. Today and this week we celebrate that Meredith Higgins was discharged from the rehab facility this last Monday. She's here with us today. Welcome, Meredith. Meredith and family have expressed that they're deeply grateful for the cards and healing wishes sent over the last 3 months. Friends are asked to text or email daughter Anna if they wish to schedule a visit. We send our collective care this week as well to Jean Dorlands, Jean Faith Dorlands, part of our online Connecting Souls community, as she prepares to have 2 significant surgeries on her left eye tomorrow. She is deeply grateful for all of the support of All Souls, which she calls her chosen family, and welcomes your prayers. We send our care to Gordon Kent, beloved longtime All Souls member, pillar of our music ministry, as he prepares for another surgery next week. We shower Gordon with encouragement as he continues to pursue recovery and independence. Today we hold Chuck Wooldridge, who is leaving tomorrow for Kentucky for the funeral of his Aunt Joyce. Sadly, Chuck had just returned last week from a quick trip to visit with his aunt and spent time with his brother-in-law, who is suffering from stage 4 cancers. We extend our care to Leanne Trowbridge and her daughters Margot and Camille Lewis as they grieve the death of their beloved husband and father, Chris Lewis. Chris died of cardiac arrest in his sleep on June 23rd. Leanne, Margot, and Camille have been cherished members of the All Souls Music, Religious Education, and Mount Pleasant communities. Leanne lovingly shared this reflection with us. Chris carried a lot of discomfort about organized religion from his childhood, but he said to me multiple times that All Souls was the first church he felt comfortable in. He spent many joyful Sunday mornings at Our Souls, especially when he had the chance to watch our girls sing in the youth choir. Those experiences at All Souls had a big impact on Chris and our whole family. We'll share more about details about memorial service plans this fall once they are finalized. Today we surround the family of Mary Cagle with our care. Mary died surrounded by family following a heart attack on June 14th. Mary brought her exuberant presence and beautiful tenor voice to the All Souls Vesper Village and was a member of the UU congregation of Silver Spring. A full celebration of her life will take place in the fall at the Silver Spring congregation. Today, cards for all of these will be at our caring call table in the lobby. And finally, today, we recognize the life and the passing of Dr. Bernice Johnson Reagan, civil rights activist, founding member of the a cappella group Sweet Honey in the Rock, and a Washingtonian with many All Souls connections. It's hard to overstate the impact that she had, that Sweet Honey in the Rock did and continues to have as an intersection of racial justice and gender justice, complexity and courage, politics, heart, soul, and song. Our offertory song today is one of her songs, We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For. We're grateful for her life, for her work and her music that will continue to hold us and inspire us even now that she is gone. We honor her as she takes her place among the ancestors. In the silence that follows, you are invited to speak aloud or write into the chat or into the sacred silence of your heart the people, places, or causes you carry with us here today. Let the names be shared. Friends, so much has been said, too much for more words to hold. So our prayer today is simply to be in silence together in this sacred time.
Amen. I want to start with an acknowledgement. And I don't know that this is something that I have said explicitly to the whole of All Souls, but one of the things that I've pledged to myself and I pledge to you is transparent communication. And so for that reason, I wanted to share that I heard from two of you that you were disappointed I did not personally address the assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life last Sunday. For me, I thought that moment was beautifully held in prayer by our liturgist, Kirsten Lodel. And I hear that there is a desire for spiritual leadership from your lead minister in moments of fear and uncertainty. So I thank you for this feedback. It's really valuable. And I want to share, let us learn together what this ministry should look like. Speaking a little to that moment, I firmly believe in nonviolence, and I grieve with the families who lost someone. I'm thankful that as a country, we did not have to fully experience the trauma and the cycle response of traumas if there had been a completed assassination. But even the specter of political violence is a fearful, uneasy, and terrifying thing. What occurred never should have. I not only pray for, but seek to create a society that has an ethic of care, not recrimination, a practice of mutuality, not violence, where belonging, not alienation, is our common ground. May we tend to that tender prayer together. Today, though, I want to talk about how Trump and those around him are processing and speaking about the attack. I'm not surprised, but I am heavy-hearted to hear on NPR that divine intervention is credited for Trump's survival. With characteristic disregard that lives were extinguished, that family members feared for their injured, that another young man armed went in with a plan. Trump said on social media, "It was God alone who prevented the unthinkable from happening." All of those things should have been unthinkable. He said, "We will fear not, but instead remain resilient in our faith and defiant in the face of wickedness." Wickedness, wickedness, such a biblical term. And it's not just Trump. Republican politician Vivek Ramaswamy shared on Fox News, "I personally believe that God intervened today, not just on behalf of President Trump, but on behalf of our country." Christian nationalism is the name for such thinking. Christian nationalism's message can be reduced down to something clear and simple. America has been singled out by God for God's special providence and God's special design in the world. Just look at Pastor Robert Jeffries, who, speaking about the assassination attempt last Sunday, said, "God spared him for the purpose of calling our nation back to its Judeo-Christian foundation." Let's interrogate that. What religious figure has had the power to bring a whole nation under one specific God and faith? None. And yet Trump is seen as the savior to do so. Caitlin Sheesh, author of the books Liturgy of Politics and The Ballot and the Bible, says rhetoric like this usurps the position of what Christians believe. What had been Jesus Christ as the Messiah is now Trump as the Messiah. In addition to a number of other similarities, this Trump as Messiah reminds me of another moment in history just over 100 years ago in Germany. Did you know that 2 months before he was appointed chancellor, Hitler strongly pursued a separate campaign? He had lost an earlier election, something he never repeated again. And so this time, he devoted all of his resources and all of the resources of his party in a different election. That election was a church election for presbyters and synods. Essentially, he wanted to ensure that his sympathizers and allies took over all the governing leadership positions of the Protestant churches of Germany. Now, Hitler had an astute political mind, and his Nationalist Socialist Party were largely super successful. In most areas of the country, about 70 to 85% of the vote went for those who were pro the Nationalist Socialist ideology. Those churches, aligned and led by leadership favorable to the Nazi Party, became known as the destroyed churches. In the 5 areas where the Nationalist Socialist Party failed to elect its church leaders, however, those churches became known as the intact churches. When Hitler became chancellor, he appointed a puppet, Ludwig Müller, to run this large national ecclesiastical church, renamed the German Christian Church. Now, unlike Hitler, Müller had no political sense. On November 13th, 1933, he organized this huge religious event in the Berlin Sportspalast. Tens of thousands of people gathered together to hear the word of their new religious leader. They entered, imagine, into this sports stadium, but instead of sports banners, there were huge banners of the Socialist National Party. The banners showed swastikas, not crosses. And there Müller proclaimed the new teachings of this German Christian church. That the true Christianity is the Christianity of the National Socialist Party of Hitler. The Führer is the true teacher of real Christianity. The Führer is bringing a new revelation. Let me unpack this so you could understand the way that the Germans in that big sports stadium understood it that day. That the National Socialist Party, not the Bible, determined the real message of Christianity. That Hitler, not clergy leaders, not tradition, would be the teacher and interpreter of Christian texts and theology. That the revelations according to Jesus were old and incomplete. That Germans weren't supposed to answer the call of Jesus anymore. That in fact, they had replaced Jesus with Hitler as the true word of Christianity. The reality is that the Third Reich may have been elected to lead the church, but they valued the qualities of a good Nazi over the hallmarks of Christianity. I invite you to listen closely to what that meant. strength over weakness, domination rather than humility, hatred rather than love, dependence on Hitler rather than dependence on Jesus, not to mention the importance of blood, race, and soil rather than the sacraments and a sense of eternity. To me this week, those same values could be stated today, just swapping out National Socialism and Trump. Do you know what happened in that stadium? The German people who overwhelmingly voted to elect those Christian leaders, positioning Hitler as Messiah, those same very Germans reacted with disgust, flat out refusal, because they knew at the core of their faith that Jesus was the way. They held on to a faith and that they had grown up with, and they were clear that there were certain lines you could not cross. And this was really an interesting moment because Hitler knew that the resistance was so strong, he would not be able to win. And so that he would crack down on clergy and churches that directly attacked the Third Reich. From that moment on, he effectively abandoned the campaign to use the church as an organ of the state. Here's a question of discernment for you. Why would Hitler have invested all that time and energy and power in trying to co-opt the church if he thought the voice of the church had nothing to say? Which gets us back to those intact churches I mentioned before. The churches in the 5 areas that refused to go along with the elections, supported by Hitler's party, those churches became known as the confessional churches. And I used to think, as an unchurched person myself, that confessional was an odd choice here, because I always thought that confessional referred to like those little boxy rooms you go into in the dark and you kind of confess the little naughty things that you've done to some man dressed in a robe. But that's not actually what confessional means here at all. Confessions of faith are actually public statements of faith. Confessions of faith are ways that a corporate body, such as a church community or a community of like-minded believing folk, come together to say, this is what I believe. Here I stand in my belief, proudly and confidently and unflinchingly. These intact churches, these confessional churches, made some statements of belief. I'm going to lift up what they said and also how they meant these statements of belief to be voices of moral dissent to what they saw happening around them. For instance, when they said, we believe that there is one Messiah, Jesus, who came to us, who speaks the true word of Christianity, and who calls people into a practice of Christianity, they were refuting the suggestion that German Christians had now found a savior and a revelation in Hitler. The intact church's confessional statements affirmed the Old Testament as an essential part of the Bible, along with keeping the many biblical references of Jesus being referred to as a Jew. Mueller, in contrast, defrocked all clergy of Jewish descent and all clergy married to non-Aryans. He pushed for the de-Judification of the Bible. The confessional churches said, we believe in the holy rite of baptism, which says that anyone who converts is a true member of our community. In other words, you can't separate out people based on their ethnic or religious heritage. In other words, baptism no longer made you Jewish, a literal lifeline at that time. Sermon after sermon, as well as other statements, emphasized that Jesus preached to Gentiles and welcomed those from other lands. The meaning was clear. We are meant to be open and accepting, tolerant and curious of others. In other words, it is anathema to Christianity to perpetuate the anti-Semitism that was at the heart of the National Socialist Party. For me, these examples should be a clarion call for us to ask ourselves, are our Unitarian Universalist churches intact, by which I mean ethically? Are we engaged in theological meaning-making enough that our own confessional statements would speak both boldly and compassionately towards the repair needed in the world? I think, like in Germany, the answer is that some of our congregations are intact, but not all. And too often we sit on the treasure trove of American liberal theology, but act like paupers. The paucity of ignorance can be truly disheartening when the world needs it so much. But when we do make our own confessionals, it is powerful. I don't know if you remember back to 2016 and 2017, 2018 and 2019, but the UUA created these lawn signs during Donald Trump's presidency, and there were a few of them, but my favorite read, "In this congregation, we believe love is love, Black lives matter, climate change is real, no human being is illegal, all genders are whole, holy, and good. Women's rights are human rights." Each time I read it, it felt half like a centering prayer and half like a bomb, and always the truths that would sustain me for another week. These aren't pithy slogans. They are condensed theology. We believe in a universal love, universal acceptance, universal welcome, universal grace. We believe that we are part of that love, and that same love should shine through us. So when we humans love each other, more commit to loving each other, we call that love holy, sacred, a blessing. We believe that the spark of the divine is within each of us, inherent worthiness. Theists among us might say that we share within us part of God's very nature. So to us, saying Black Lives Matter is a theological affirmation as much as it is a commitment to equity and liberation. How can any human being be illegal for being when each human is a child of God? We believe that our bodies house the spark of the divine, the sacred life force of the universe. It is through our bodies that we live and experience the world. How could any body, therefore, be worthy of judgment when it is already good enough to hold that blessing? All genders are holy and good. All bodies, thin, fat, strong, frail, all of differing abilities are worthy of respect. Theology is essential, but without a willingness to commit to one's values, theology is mere words. Let me leave you thinking about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. If you don't know Bonhoeffer, let me just share with you a very small part of his story quickly. He was brilliant. At age 24, he completed all his postgraduate studies in theology, and though he was able to become a professor, he was considered too young to become a Lutheran priest. Bonhoeffer still was the first clergy person to speak up against Hitler. Just 2 days after Hitler was installed as chancellor, Bonhoeffer went on the radio warning Germans to beware of the ideological cult of the Führer, lest we discover he's a vampire and a seducer. That radio broadcast was cut off mid-sentence. Censored and at risk of being either militarily conscripted or being thrown in jail, throughout the 1930s, Bonhoeffer led underground seminaries in Germany. He traveled abroad trying to build ecumenical contacts and to warn the rest of Europe about the dangerous rise of Nazi Germany. In 1939, things became so dangerous that for a while he took a professorship at Union Theological Seminary in New York City, my alma mater. He wasn't that impressed by it. He was distraught, though. He understood that there were real threats against his life were he to return to Germany. But he thought to himself, how can I be part of rebuilding Germany's future after the war if I don't endure the trials of being in Germany now? And go back he did. My dear ones, what future will we be part of if we don't engage the work of democracy faithfully now? What does our faith have to say? How will we act in ways that demonstrate the courage and commitment of our beliefs? Beloveds, if not now, then when? May it be so.
Hello again. I was reflecting on the question posed in today's sermon. How does our faith encourage us as we seek to repair the world? As a faith community containing a wide diversity of backgrounds and beliefs, I think that we might have a very long list of different answers to that question, and a similarly long list of different actions that we all individually take to repair our broken world. But one thing that many of us have in common is that we gather here in this sanctuary and online with others who share in our passion and in our desire to take action. I think it's vitally important that we continue to give what it takes to maintain a building to gather in, to support the ministers who help organize our efforts and sustain our community, and staff that work often behind the scenes to maintain the space we need to gather and to take action together. I also think it's important that we continue to support our community partners who take action to make a positive change day after day. Our July Share the Plate recipient is the Latin American Youth Center, which is headquartered nearby on Columbia Road. It provides over 50 programs and services to help youth become the best possible version of themselves, including housing, education, wellness, and much more. If you're in the sanctuary, the ushers will be passing the plate for our offering today. You can also text to All Souls by sending ASCU to the number 73256. If you're on Zoom, click the link in the chat, which will direct you to All Souls online giving. Thank you in advance for your generosity.
Are the ones we've been waiting for this last song. And thanks to Dr. Bernice Johnson Reagan for all of her music and for that song. Turning to another giant, Harry Belafonte. Harry Belafonte, in his story about this closing song, says, "Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? If we can see one another clearly, then and only then we can turn the world around." I invite you to rise in body, rise in spirit. Let's sing this calypso together. We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Oh, so is life. Ah, so is life. Oh, so is life. Ah, so is
our democracy, that unruly, unfinished, relenting urge to be one beloved community. So whether we are taking to the streets or calling strangers with hope for connection and listening in our hearts, whenever we extend our values through interdependence and mutuality, we are being faithful. Let us bring all of who we are and we believe and hope for to this holy work. May it be so, and amen.
And now for the moment that extroverts have been waiting for. I invite you to greet one another. Please turn and greet someone you did not come in with.